चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी आशताय देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। She can be called Hare Krishna, Shri. Hare Krishna. So we welcome everyone for, just close the door, for today's morning reading. We're reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 2, verse number 48 onwards. Text 48. Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhi asiddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Perform your duty equipoise, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachments to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. Purport. Krishna tells Arjuna that he should act in yoga. And what is that yoga? Yoga means to concentrate the mind upon the Supreme by controlling the ever-disturbing senses. And who is the Supreme? The Supreme is the Lord. And because he himself is telling Arjuna to fight, Arjuna has nothing to do with the results of the fight. Gain or victory are Krishna's concerns. Arjuna is simply advised to act according to the direction of Krishna. The following of Krishna's dictation is real yoga, and this is prescribed in the process called Krishna consciousness. By Krishna consciousness only can one give up the sense of proprietorship. One has to become the servant of Krishna or the servant of Krishna. That is the right way to discharge duty in Krishna consciousness, which alone can help one to act in yoga. So Kula Dharma, Varna Dharma. Above all this, Dharma is to serve Krishna. Therefore, at the end of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Sarva Dharman Parityaja. Give up all dharmas. And what you do? Maam Ekam Sharanam Vraja. So this is the point which is mentioned here. To serve Krishna is the highest. Arjuna is a Kshatriya, and as such he is participating in Varnashrama Dharma institution. It is said in the Vishnu Purana that in the Varnashrama Dharma, the whole aim is to satisfy Vishnu. No one should satisfy himself, as is the rule in the material world, but one should satisfy Krishna. So unless one satisfies Krishna, one cannot correctly observe the principles of Varnashrama Dharma. Indirectly, Arjuna was advised to act as Krishna told him. That's the point. So, Sangam Tyaktva Dhananjaya, Siddhi Asiddhi, without being worried about the loss and gain, victory or defeat, happiness or misery, Samatvam Yoga Uchyate, perform your duty. And that what becomes yoga if it is done under the orders of Lord Shri Krishna. Text number 49. So we are talking about Buddhi Yoga, right? Bhakti Yoga. So now Krishna is speaking about how to act, how to practice it, how to live by it. That is a discussion happening now. Text number 49. Durena hi avritam karma Buddhi Yoga dhananjaya Buddhau sharanam anvicha kripana falahetava. O Dhananjaya, keep all abominable activities far distant by devotional service, and in that consciousness surrender unto the Lord. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers. This is the verse, also statement of Lord Shri Krishna, which made Arjuna doubtful, and he would ask a question on it in the 3rd chapter, verse number 1. So you want to mark it for yourself. Purport. One who has actually come to understand one's constitutional position as an eternal servant of the Lord gives up all engagements save working in Krishna consciousness. As already explained, Buddhi Yoga means transcendental loving service to the Lord. Such devotional service is the right course of action for the living entity. Only misers desire to enjoy the fruits of their own work, just to be further entangled in material bondage. Except for work in Krishna consciousness, all activities are abominable because they continually bind the worker to the cycle of birth and death. One should therefore never desire to be the cause of work. Everything should be done in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of Krishna. Sarvadharman pratyaja mahamekam sharanam. Same principle. Misers do not know how to utilize the assets of riches which they acquire by good fortune or by hard labor. One should spend all energies working in Krishna consciousness, and that will make one's life successful. Like misers, unfortunate persons do not employ their human energy in the service of the Lord. So what Srila Prabhupada is trying to say here is just like you're working for a company and company provides you some facilities, maybe a phone, maybe a laptop. Now when company gives you all these facilities, what is the purpose of it? To fulfill the purpose of the company. It is supposed to be used in the service of the company. But when you start using it for personal purposes, then you're called as a thief or a rogue. And the company withdraws the resources or fires you. That is what this body, the intelligence, the food, the water, air, everything has been provided by the Lord. So where it should be employed? In the service of the Lord. But where are we employing? For my own personal agenda. Therefore, we are in this world. We are thieves who have been left in this world of Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi to suffer life after life. And only there is a false hopes. Tomorrow you'll be happy. You graduate from school, you'll be happy. Graduate from college, you'll be happy. Get a job, you'll be happy. And then such continues. Get married, you'll be happy. Get a child, you'll be happy. Get a child married, you'll be happy. You continue some, no, आज निकल ऐसे करके व्यक्ति का जीवन निकल जाता है, but there is no happiness. Text number 50. The art of all work. Buddhi yukto jahatiha ube sukrita dushkrite tasma yogaya yujyasva yogaha karmashu kaushalam. Kaushalam, the art. Yogaha karmashu kaushalam. This is the art of work. What is that? A man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad reactions even in this life. Therefore, strive for yoga, which is the art of all work. That's the point. The work becomes worship. That is what Krishna is teaching. Arjuna's act of fighting became the highest act of service because he followed the order of Lord Shri Krishna. The student studies becomes worship, becomes yoga. If he does it with an understanding that this is how I'll please Krishna. And how to please Krishna? You give credit to Krishna. Somebody asks you, oh, you're a topper. How did you become topper? I did all the hard work. No, this is by the blessings of Lord Shri Krishna. And you use that goodwill and the good result that you have got in your life by encouraging others. By living a Krishna conscious lifestyle, others would definitely become inspired by you. Similarly, the work that you do, the results that you accrue from the work, that should be utilized in the service of the Lord. Like that, our work becomes yoga or worship. So all these activities that we have, every morning, our mothers and fathers get in the morning, they light up a candle or light up an incense, and in front of hundreds of deities, they'll, keep fanning it or keep circling it. Doesn't make any difference. Only thing is more pollution is created. Because the incense are also not pure today. Purport. Since time immemorial, each living entity has accumulated the various reactions of his good and bad work. As such, he is continuously ignorant of his real constitutional position. One's ignorance can be removed by the instruction of the Bhagavad Gita, which teaches one to surrender unto Lord Shri Krishna in all aspects and become liberated from the chained victimization of action and reaction, birth after birth. Arjuna is therefore advised to act in Krishna consciousness, the purifying process of resultant action. Text number 51. What are the benefits of Buddhi Yoga or Bhakti Yoga? Karmajam Buddhi Yukta hi phalam tyaktva manishanaha janma bandha vinirmuktaha padam gacchanti namayam. Padam gacchanti, they attain. What they attain? By thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the results of work in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries by going home back to Godhead. So this is the first verse, and so far all our discussion or whatever we have read, for the first time, Lord Shri Krishna is indicating what is the purpose of Bhagavad Gita. Why am I telling Arjuna this Bhagavad Gita? I'm telling Arjuna this Bhagavad Gita so that he concludes all his karmic activities. He gets freed from all his sinful past or even the pious results. I'm telling Arjuna for this Bhagavad Gita so that he can go beyond the modes of material nature. In other words, he may go beyond the Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi. I'm telling Arjuna this Bhagavad Gita why? Or Krishna telling Arjuna this Bhagavad Gita why? Because he wants all of us to come back home, back to Godhead. What is going to happen by the practice of Buddhi Yoga, Karma Yoga? By Karma Yoga, you do not accrue any more results, either pious or impious. When you don't have any karmic reactions, there's going to be no birth. And there's not going to be no birth in this material world. Where do we go? We go to the spiritual world. So what does Krishna wants us? Krishna is inviting us home back to Godhead. That is the ultimate purpose of Bhagavad Gita. And if we don't understand this purpose of Bhagavad Gita, we have missed out the most essential teaching. And that was the subject matter of my Sunday's class, where this was the first verse from where I started quoting that how verse after verse Krishna all through Bhagavad Gita is telling us, come back home, back to Godhead. This is his invitation, this is his compassion which is manifesting through it. All right. Padam Gachanti. Padam means the highest destination. Gachanti means attains, like that. Purport. The liberated, you want to highlight that, huh? Padam Gachanti Nama. So what Krishna wants us? He wants us to come back home. Why this Bhagavad Gita is spoken? Purport. The liberated living entities belong to that place where there are no material miseries. The Bhagavatam says, Samashitaye padapallava plavam mahat padam punyesho murari bhavam buddhivasya padam param padam yat vipadam natesham. For one who has accepted the boat of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of the cosmic manifestation, is famous as Mukunda, or the giver of mukti. The ocean of the material world is like the water contained in the calf's footprint. Param padam, or the place where there are no material miseries, or Vaikuntha, is his goal, not the place where there is danger in every step of life. So Prabhupada starts the purport with describing about spiritual world. Not to live in the material world, but to go back to spiritual world. Owing to ignorance, one does not know that this material world is a miserable place. So if you see, so far there has been no discussion about material world. There has been very little, or it's all happening about karma. So it's the first purport, the material world versus spiritual world has been highlighted. Mark it for yourself. Because Bhagavad Gita 2nd chapter is a summary of all the concepts which have been discussed in the rest of the Bhagavad Gita. So somebody may ask, oh, where in the spiritual world is discussed in the 2nd chapter? Here it is. Padam Gachanti Anamayam. And 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita would discuss elaborately. 8th and the 15th chapter would discuss elaborately about spiritual world. So out of ignorance, only less intelligent person try to adjust to the situation by fruitive activities, thinking that the resultant actions will make them happy. They do not know that no kind of material body anywhere within the universe can give life without miseries. Even Brahmaji has to sometime, has to be afraid of demons. He had to at one point of time run away from Brahmaloka. The miseries of life, namely birth, old age, disease, are present everywhere within the material world. But one who understands his real constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Lord, and thus knows the position of the Godhead, engages himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Consequently, he becomes qualified to enter into the Vaikuntha planet, where there is neither material, miserable life, nor influence of the time and death. To know one's constitutional position means to know also the sublime position of the Lord. One wrongly thinks that the living entity's position, the Lord's position on the same level, is to be understood to be in darkness, and therefore unable to engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. He becomes the Lord himself and thus paves the way for the repetition of birth and death. But one who, understanding that his position is to serve, transfers himself to the service of the Lord, at once becomes eligible for the Vaikuntha Loka. Service for the cause of the Lord is called Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga, or in plain words, devotional service to the Lord. Text number 52. Yada te moha kalilam buddhe vaiti tarishyati tada gantasya nirvedam shrotavyasya shrutasya cha. When your intelligence is passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. Which means, when one has become fixed in Krishna consciousness, which means have woken up from his deep slumber of freedom from ignorance, then he will not get affected by what he has to heard or what he had heard in the past. There won't be, which means there is no confusion in the mind of a devotee. He is completely fixed on his goal. Papa, there are many good examples in the lives of the great devotees of the Lord, those who became indifferent to the rituals of the Vedas simply by devotion service to the Lord. When a person factually, what do you mean by became indifferent to the rituals? They have developed such a strong faith in the chanting of the holiness of the Lord. They don't go to astrologer to get, to figure out, get rid of their karmic reaction, etc., etc. If anything is there, they know that Lord will protect me. I should just take shelter of the Lord. That's the point here. When a person actually understands Krishna and his relationship with Krishna, he naturally becomes completely indifferent to the rituals of fruitive activities, even though an experienced Brahmana. Sri Madhavendra Puri, a great devotee nature in the life of devotee, says, "Oh, my prayers 3 times a day, all glory to you." What it means? Tata bye bye. This is the prayers which as a Brahmana he would have to recite before. He's saying no more doing now. "Oh, Beting, I offer my obeisances unto you. O demigod, forefather, please excuse me for my inability to offer you my respects. Now, wherever I sit, I can remember the great descent of the Yadu dynasty, Krishna, the enemy of Kamsa, and therefore I can free myself from all sinful bondage. I think this is sufficient for me." So, this is not to be imitated at our level. So, tomorrow onwards, no more bathing. What I'm doing, I'm remembering Krishna. So, that's not the point. This is Madhavendra Puri and Acharya. He is saying that I don't need to depend on anything. Taking bath is a purifying process. I don't need to depend on any rituals for that reason. Just by chanting Hare Krishna, I can be purified. The Vedic rites and rituals are imperative for Prabhupada writes it. The Vedic rules and regulations are imperative means compulsory for neophytes. Comprehending all kinds of prayers 3 times a day, taking bath early in the morning, offering respect. We should do that. But when one is fully in Krishna consciousness and is engaged in his transcendental loving service, one becomes indifferent to all these regulative principles because they already attained perfection. So how many of us are fully Krishna conscious here? All right. Continue taking bath and chanting and everything. All right. If one can reach the platform of understanding by the service to Supreme Lord Krishna, he has no longer to execute different types of penances and sacrifices as recommended in the revealed scriptures. And similarly, one has not understood that the purpose of the Veda is to reach Krishna and simply engages in the rituals, etc., then he is uselessly wasting time in such engagements. The persons in Krishna consciousness transcend the limit of Shabda Brahma or the range of the Vedas and Upanishads. So why it is considered to be useless? By Prabhu is saying those who are actually not worshipping Krishna or following rules and regulation for the pleasure of Krishna. Why? Because you will still have to take birth in this material world. From that absolute context, this is useless. That's the point. It does not mean those who follow rituals, they will not get the result, desired result. They will get the result. But in complete picture, the goal of Bhagavad Gita is to take us back to Godhead. If by all our endeavors we fail to go home back to Godhead, then all that endeavors are useless. That's the point here, all right? Prabhupada is not criticizing Vedic rituals or principles. Prabhupada is just saying the goal of Bhagavad Gita is for us to go back to Godhead. So if our activities cannot liberate us, what's the use of it? It becomes karma kanda. Text number 53. Shruti viprati pannate yada sthasti nishala samadhau achala buddhi tadayogam avashasi. When your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, when it remains fixed in the trance of self-realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness. Beautiful purport about material consciousness versus spiritual consciousness. Purport. To say that one is in samadhi is to say one has fully realized Krishna. That is, one is full samadhi, has realized Brahman, Paramatma Bhagwan. The highest perfection of self-realization is to understand that one is eternally the servant of Krishna and that one's only business is to discharge one's duty in Krishna consciousness. A Krishna conscious person or unflinching devotee of the Lord should not be disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, nor be engaged in fruitive activities for promotion to the heavenly kingdom. In Krishna consciousness, one comes directly into communion with Krishna, and thus all directions from Krishna may be understood in that transcendental state. One is sure to achieve results by such activities and attain conclusive knowledge. Please highlight. One has only to carry out the orders of Krishna or his representatives, the spiritual master, to attain this divine consciousness, to purify and make a progress. Just follow the instructions. And this concludes over here. The concepts of Buddhi Yoga have been surmised here. Now, 54th to the 72 or 73rd verse of this chapter, the discussion is about the question that Arjuna is going to ask here now in the text number 54. So, text number 54 is the last section of this chapter 2. Arjuna vacha sita pragnasya ka bhasha samadhi stasya keshava sitadi kim prabhasheta kimasita vrajeta kim. So Arjuna is asking about here about the person who has attained a divine consciousness. So Arjuna wants to know from Krishna, my dear Lord, how do I know this person has attained a divine consciousness? So how does he sit? How does he walk? How does he speak? But how would his actions and behaviors would be different than a normal person? That is what Arjuna is trying to ask. Let's hear translation. O Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak? What's his language? How does he sit? And how does he walk? Purport. As there are symptoms for each and every man in terms of his particular situation, similarly, one who is in Krishna consciousness has his particular nature. His talking, his walking, thinking, feeling, etc. As a rich man has the symptoms by which he is known as a rich man, a deceased man has his own symptoms. Learned man, and similarly a transcendent man in transcendent consciousness also has specific symptoms. One can know his specific symptoms from the Bhagavad Gita. Most important is how the man in Krishna consciousness speaks. For speech is the most important quality of any man. It is said that a fool is undiscovered as long as he does not speak. And certainly a well-dressed fool cannot be identified unless he speaks. But as soon as he speaks, he reveals himself at once. The immediate symptom of a Krishna conscious man is that he speaks only of Krishna and of matters relating to him. Other symptoms then automatically follow as stated below. And now Krishna would answer Arjuna's question about Ka Bhasha, Sitadhi, and Kim Asita. Text number 55. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Prajahati yada kaman sarvam partho manogatan atmanivatmana tushtaha sita pragna taduchate. So who attains divine consciousness? Sita pragnasya. What are the symptoms of one who has attained divine consciousness? Translation. The Lord said, O Parth, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental speculation or concoction, and when his mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. Purport. The Bhagavatam affirms that any person who is fully in Krishna consciousness has all the good qualities. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati yakinchana sarva gune satra samasate surha. That's the verse. Consequently, whereas a person who is not transcendental situated has no good qualification. Consequently, it is rightly said herein that one has to give up all kinds of sense desires manufactured by mental concoction. Artificially, such sense desires cannot be stopped. But if one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, then automatically sense desires subside without extraneous efforts. How many of you have an experience on the day of Ekadashi, if you have done Nirjal, then all your senses, agitation, all goes away. Sex pleasure is said to be the highest pleasure in this world. On the day of Nirjal Ekadashi, I would say even a lusty man has somehow have decided to follow Nirjal Ekadashi, even such a man would not get lusty thoughts. Because when your senses are dried up, when they're tired, the thoughts of sense enjoyment just does not come. We would have that experience. So similarly, if same senses with which a person engages into sense gratification and with the same mind which contemplates on the sense object, if that has been engaged in the service of the Lord, then there is no opportunity for sense enjoyment or sinful activities. That's the meaning here. Therefore, one has to engage himself in Krishna consciousness without hesitation. For this devotional service will instantly help one onto the platform of transcendental consciousness. The highly developed soul always remains satisfied in himself by realizing himself as the eternal servitor of the Lord. Such a transcendently situated person has no sense desires resulting from petty materialism. Rather, he remains always happy in his natural position of eternally serving the Supreme Lord. So, what is the symptom, or who, who's said to be in pure transcendental consciousness, who has given up all desires for sense gratification, and he finds full satisfaction in Krishna conscious practices. Text number 56. How does he speak? Will be answered in 56 and 57. Dukheshu nidvignamanaha sukheshu vigataspraha vitaragabhaya krodha sthitadhe muniruchyate. One who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries, and later when there is happiness, and is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. So, how does he speak? Refers to how does he respond to different situations. So that is what is meant. Now, what we speak is first processed in our mind. So what we speak actually indicates the state of our mind, right? For example, if someone's mind has been too absorbed, let's say in cricket match, there is some cricket matches going on, or maybe just recently some tournament got over. So the moment you meet with him, what would you begin to speak about? The cricket tournament, isn't it? So that's the point here. So how do we respond to different situations? It actually depends on what's the state of your mind. Purport. The word Muni means one who can agitate his mind in various ways for mental speculation without coming to a factual conclusion. It is said that every Muni has a different angle of vision, and unless a Muni differs from other Munis, he cannot be called a Muni. But a Sitadir Muni, as mentioned herein, is different from an ordinary Muni. The Sitadir Muni is always in Krishna consciousness, for he has exhausted all his business of creative speculation. He is called Prashanta Niheshesha Manorathantra. A one who has surpassed the stage of mental speculation and has come to the conclusion that Lord Krishna is everything. He is called Muni, fixed in mind. Such a fully Krishna conscious person is not at all disturbed with the onslaughts of the three modes of miseries, for he accepts all miseries as the mercy of the Lord, thinking himself only worthy of more trouble due to his past misdeeds. And he sees that his miseries by the grace of the Lord are minimized to the lowest. Similarly, when he is happy, he gives credit to the Lord, thinking himself unworthy of the happiness. He realizes that it is due to only Lord's grace that he is in such a comfortable condition and able to render better service to the Lord. And for the service of the Lord, he is always daring and active and is not influenced by attachment or aversion. Attachment means accepting for one's gratification, and detachment is the absence of such sensual attachment. But one fixed in Krishna consciousness has neither attachment nor detachment, because his life is dedicated in the service of the Lord. Consequently, he is not at all angry, even when his attempts are unsuccessful. Success or no success, a Krishna conscious person is always steady in his determination. So, dukheshu anudvignamanaha sukheshu vigataspraha. He sees the happiness and distress with same vision or equally. Text number 57. Yah sarvatranabhishneha tat prapya shubhashubham na abhinandanti na dveshi tasya prajna pratishtata. In the material world, one who is unaffected by good or evil, neither praising or despising it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. How many of time have you met people, whenever you begin to talk to them, they have something to cry about? क्या बताएं, घर में पानी नहीं आता, ओहो क्या बोलें, कल मेड ही नहीं आई, अरे मैं ऑफिस की तो क्या बात करूं, ये लोग इतना दुखी करते हैं, और वो वो कहते हैं वो चश्मा लगाने वाला मैनेजर कभी मार मिलेगा तो कान के नीचे लगाऊं, something like that. How many have had an experience you find certain people always complaining? Raise your hands. And most of these people you find in your family only, right? So they keep complaining. So here it is said, such a person is not affected. Now the point is, he's not, either they're complaining or either they have got something, they're boasting about it. अरे ये जो मैं आईफोन लेकर आया हूँ कितना बढ़िया है, तुम्हारा सैमसंग कुछ भी नहीं है इसके सामने. iPhone too good. So either they are boasting about or either they are complaining about. But a Krishna conscious person does not do either of it. Why? He is always remembering Krishna and always talking about Krishna. That is the point. And let's put it this way, if we start doing that, then we'll stop doing all this. Which means if we start talking about Krishna, we'll stop complaining or glorifying our own deeds. That is the point here. There's always some upheaval in the material world which may be good or evil. One is not agitated by such material upheavals. Who is unaffected by good and evil is to be understood to be fixed in Krishna consciousness. As long as one is in the material world, there is always a possibility of good and evil because this world is full of dualities. But one who is fixed in Krishna consciousness is not affected. He is simply concerned with Krishna, who is all good, absolute. Such consciousness in Krishna situates one in perfect transcendental position called technically Samadhi. And that's where the great success of Srila Prabhupada lies. Srila Prabhupada brought this knowledge and made it so relevant and so down to earth. Even an IT professional or a doctor or maybe a housewoman, a homemaker can become a yogi by performing their worldly duties. Earlier understanding of yogi means give up everything, go to the forest, then only you can get this title of a yogi, or you can consider yourself doing any kind of yoga. Today we can be at any situation in life, still can perform this yoga and can be moving forward. How? You just have to always remember Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada created or organized this institution in such a way that there is no scarcity of opportunity to remember and speak about Krishna. Yes? The Kartik month ended where we were celebrating Kartik whole month, Damodar Ashtakam, lamp, whatnot, and then we are told to preach. We were asked to go out and encourage others to or invite them to our homes for lighting of lamps. Now came the December marathon month. Everyone goes out and distribute books. If you see, I'm just giving an example. If you look around this whole year, then you have Ram Navami, then you have Janmashtami Mela, then you have Jagannath Yatra, then you have Gaur Purnima, then you have Narasimha Chaturdashi. Festival goes on, activities goes on. Prabhupada have given us a system where there is no opportunity for us to forget Krishna. In Krishna consciousness, or those who are connected to ISKCON, they really have to work hard to forget Krishna. There is no opportunity for us to forget Krishna. This is how Srila Prabhupada gave us the system. That's his beauty, and that's the reason all of us have been transformed and affected so quickly. Text number 58, we'll make it as the last verse for today. Yada samharate chayam kurmongani vasarvashaha indriyan indriyartebhya tasya prajna pratishtita. So, how does he speak? How does he respond? 56, 57. And how does he sit? Would be discussed here. How does he sit means how does he control his senses? That is a discussion from 58 and 59th verse. Text number 58. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects, as a tortoise draws its limbs within the shell, is firmly fixed in perfect Krishna consciousness. Purport. The test of a yogi, devotee, selfless soul is that he is able to control the senses according to his plan. That's the reason Go Swami and Godasa. One who is controlled by his senses is called as Godasa. And one who is the master of senses is called as Goswami. This is real power. We want to show our power to others, but this is where we want to express our power by controlling our senses. The senses function according to what I want. And today we function according to what senses want. That's the journey we have to travel. Most people, however, are servants of the senses and thus directed by the dictation of the senses. That is the answer to the question as to how the yogi is situated. The senses are compared to venomous serpents. They want to act very loosely and without restriction. The yogi or the devotee must be very strong to control the serpents like a snake charmer. He never allows them to act independently. There are many injunctions that reveal scriptures. Some of them are don'ts, do's and don'ts, like that Prabhupada is talking about. Where was he? Restricting oneself from sense enjoyment. It is not possible to be firmly fixed in Krishna. Sorry, I missed the line. Unless one is able to follow the do's and don'ts, restricting oneself from sense enjoyment, it is not possible to be firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness. The best example set herein is the tortoise. The tortoise can at any moment wind up its senses and exhibit them again at any time for particular purposes. Similarly, the senses of the Krishna conscious persons are used only for some particular purpose in the service of the Lord, and are withdrawn otherwise. Arjuna is being taught here to use his senses for the service of the Lord instead of for his own satisfaction. Keeping the senses always in the service of the Lord is an example set by the analogy of the tortoise who keeps the senses within. So to explain what is going on here, give me a quick second. Yeah. So here, if you see, I'm reading in the middle of the purport. There are many injunctions in the revealed scriptures. Some of them are don'ts and some of them are do's. Unless one is able to follow the do's and don'ts, rules and regulation, there is no possibility to be firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness. Which means, I'll give you a simple analogy to help you understand, and also give you some clue to answer those people who say, "Oh, in Vedic culture there are too many do's and don'ts." So how if someone challenges you, look at the other religion, so simple, don't follow anything. At the end of life, say, our God is the best God. You go back to Godhead. That's what they say, right? But no, Vedic culture, why Vedic culture seems to be so stringent? So here, Prabhupada says, if you don't follow do's and don'ts, there is no way of you becoming Krishna consciousness. So I want all of you to start imagining you are on a football field. When you're on the football field playing a football match, you have a goal post. And the whole goal of the playing the football match is to put the football into the goal post. So for us to perform any activity, the goal is to become Krishna conscious. Similarly, the football player who is playing football, his goal is to put the ball in the goal post. Now, when you play a football, there is always a boundary. Now, if imagine there is no boundary. Now, what happens when there is a boundary? The moment ball goes out of the boundary, the ball is brought inside. Which means it again reiterates, stay focused on the goal. Stay focused on the goal. Imagine you're playing a football, but there is no boundary. What is going to happen? How many of you agree after 10 minutes or 15 minutes of the game, even the goal post will not be visible? Raise your hands. After 15 minutes or 20 minutes of your game, even the goal post will not be visible. That's the whole point. Where are you playing? For what are you playing? If even the goal post is not visible. So here, the boundary may seem in the beginning stringent. Oh, why there's a boundary while playing a football? Let it be open football. Let it be freedom. No rules and regulation. But the football game would not be enjoyable. Who will like to play the game? But when you have a restriction, it allows you to play the game. It allows you to win the game. Similarly, to win the game of life, that is to go back home, back to Godhead. The rules and regulations are essentials. They are not prohibitions. They are regulative principles of freedom. I don't say that. Krishna says in 64th verse of the second chapter. We'll see that tomorrow onwards. So regulations should not be seen as prohibitions. Regulations are to be seen as essential boundaries in our life to keep us regulated and focused so that we attain the goal of life. A football match has no meaning without the boundary. Everyone plays like that. With that, we come here to the conclusion of today's reading. We are talking about Arjuna's inquiry about what is a language, how does a self-realized soul speak, how does he sit, and how does he walk. And that's a part of discussion. Tomorrow onwards, we read from text number 59 and ahead. Hare Krishna. With that, we conclude. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Hare Krishna.